He was Seoul's most dangerous man, a mafia king who'd never let a woman close enough to betray him. Until one night in Atlanta, when a woman with midnight skin and a smile that promised trouble walked into his world, stole a priceless artifact from under his pillow, and then made the fatal mistake of thinking she could disappear. Min-jae didn't just want his property back, he wanted her. And when Kang Min-jae decides something is his, he'll burn down empires to keep it. What Shawnee didn't know was that the moment she drugged him and vanished, she didn't escape. She sealed her fate. Because now she belonged to him. The auction house in Buckhead smelled like old money and older secrets. Shawnee Williams adjusted the silk of her emerald dress, her fingers steady, even though her heart hammered against her ribs. The Joseon Dynasty seal sat under spotlights 3 rows ahead, and she'd spent 6 months tracking it to this exact moment. Her client, the one who only ever contacted her through encrypted messages and wire transfers, had been very clear. Get the seal, no matter what it takes. She didn't expect him. Kang Min-jae entered like darkness given form, 6'3" of controlled power in a black suit that probably cost more than her car. Ink crawled up his neck from beneath his collar, traditional Korean dragons that seemed to move in the dim lighting. His face could have been carved from stone, all sharp angles and cold beauty, except for his eyes. Those eyes swept the room like a predator, cataloging prey. When they landed on her, everything stopped. Shawnee watched his expression shift, just a flicker, barely noticeable. But she'd spent her life reading people. Recognition? No, something else. Something that made her skin prickle with awareness. He stared at her like he'd just found something he didn't know he'd been looking for. Lot 47, the auctioneer announced. Opening bid, 2 million. 3 million, Min-jae said, his voice cutting through the room like silk-wrapped steel. He still hadn't looked away from her. Shawnee lifted her paddle, pulse racing. 4 million. His lips curved. Not quite a smile, more like a promise. 6 million. The other bidders had gone silent, sensing they'd stumbled into something private and dangerous. Shawnee's client had authorized up to 8 million, but something in the way Min-jae watched her, hungry and possessive and utterly focused, made rational thought difficult. 7 million, she countered, lifting her chin. He leaned forward slightly, and even from across the room, she felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch. His knuckles whitened against the armrest. 10 million. The gavel fell. Sold to bidder 73. Shawnee's nails bit into her palms hard enough to leave marks. She'd failed. Her mysterious client would disappear, and with him, her best-paying contract in 2 years. She was calculating her next move when a hand caught her wrist in the corridor. Running away? His accent wrapped around the English words like smoke. Up close, he was devastating, all lethal grace and barely contained danger. His grip was firm but careful, like he was afraid of breaking her and equally afraid of letting go. I don't run, Shawnee said, proud her voice didn't shake. I strategically retreat. Liar. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel how fast her heart was racing. Heat radiated from where his skin touched hers. You wanted that seal badly. Why? Why did you? She shot back. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, definitely, that she'd challenge him. No one probably challenged Kang Min-jae and lived to tell about it. I asked first. And I don't answer to men who think grabbing strangers is acceptable behavior. He released her wrist immediately, but his eyes darkened. Not with anger, but something closer to frustration that she wasn't afraid. He didn't step back, though, crowding her space in a way that should have felt threatening, but instead felt magnetic. Then let me buy you a drink, he said quietly, as an apology. I don't drink with the competition. The competition is over. I won. His voice dropped lower, rougher. Unless you're planning to steal it from me. The way he said it, like he already knew, like he was daring her to try, sent ice down her spine. But Shawnee had survived Atlanta streets and Lagos poverty by never showing fear. 1 drink, she heard herself say, but you're buying top shelf. She was already calculating. 6 years in retrieval work had taught her that the best way to steal something was to get close enough to the owner that they never saw you coming. And the small packet of sedative in her clutch? Her client had been very thorough in his preparations. What she didn't expect was how hard it would be to remember why she was really here. But here's the thing about playing with fire. Sometimes you forget you're the one holding the match. And what happened next in that hotel bar would set off a chain of events neither of them could control. A dangerous game where both players thought they were winning. Only one would walk away unscathed. Spoiler? It wouldn't be her. If you're already hooked on Shawnee and Minjai's dangerous game, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to get a whole lot messier. The hotel bar was all leather and low lighting. Minjae ordered Hibiki 30-year whiskey that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and Shawnee sipped it slowly, hyper-aware of how close he sat, his knee pressed against hers under the table, deliberate, possessive, and she refused to move away. "You're not afraid of me," he observed, swirling his glass. "Should I be?" "Most people are." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. "I'm not most people." His laugh was low and genuine, transforming his face into something almost boyish. The sound did something, dangerous to her chest. "No, you're definitely not." He studied her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve, his gaze tracing her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Shawnee Williams, import consultant from Atlanta, studied at Georgia State, fluent in Korean, which is interesting. Her blood ran cold. "You had me investigated? The moment you bid against me." He took a slow sip of whiskey, and she watched his throat work, watched the dragon tattoo shift with the movement. "I always know who I'm dealing with." "Then you know I could make your life very difficult. I'm counting on it." The way he said it, rough and almost hungry, his eyes dropping to her mouth, made heat pool low in her stomach. "Jemisel Geotgata. It'll be fun." The Korean rolled off his tongue like a caress, and Shawnee felt her carefully constructed walls crack. Dangerous assumption. "I don't make assumptions." He leaned closer, and she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker. His breath ghosted across her cheek, warm and intoxicating. "I make informed decisions, and everything about you says you're exactly the kind of dangerous I need in my life." "Need?" She raised an eyebrow, trying to ignore how her pulse jumped. "That's a strong word." "I don't use weak words." His hand slid across the table, fingers coming to rest inches from hers. Not touching, but the air between them felt electric. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Tell me something true, Shawnee. Why do you really want that seal?" She should have lied, should have given him the cover story about a collector client. Instead, she found herself leaning into the space between them, her lips near his ear. "What if I told you I needed to pay off someone very dangerous, someone who doesn't accept failure?" It wasn't entirely a lie. Her client was dangerous. Anyone who dealt in stolen Korean antiquities usually was. Minjae went very still. Then his hand covered hers on the table, and Shawnee's breath caught at the contact. His palm was warm, calloused, his thumb stroking across her knuckles in a gesture that was somehow more intimate than anything else he'd done. "Then I'd say, you're working for the wrong person. And you're the right person?" "I'm the only person." His grip tightened slightly, and she watched his hand tremble. Just barely, just enough to betray that he wasn't as controlled as he pretended. "Anyone threatening you would have to go through me first." They barely knew each other. This was insane, but something in his voice, raw and almost desperate beneath the control, made Shawnee's chest tighten painfully. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I know enough." His eyes burned into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. His pupils were blown wide, dark with want. "I know you're brilliant and brave and probably about to do something incredibly reckless. I know that the moment I saw you, tonight, something in my chest." He stopped, jaw clenching like he'd revealed too much. His fingers tightened around hers almost desperately. Shawnee's heart stuttered. This was supposed to be simple. Seduce him, get access to the seal, disappear. She wasn't supposed to feel this pull, this insane attraction to a man who was clearly as dangerous as he was beautiful. Wasn't supposed to notice the vulnerability hidden beneath all that controlled power. When he excused himself to take a call, she made her decision. Her hands didn't shake as she opened her clutch. The packet dissolved clear in whiskey. Her client had been very specific about that. By the time Min Jae returned, sliding back into the booth with that predatory grace, his refreshed drink sat waiting. "My suite is on the 23rd floor," he said quietly after draining half the glass, his voice rough with want. His hand found her thigh under the table, palm burning through the silk. "If you want to continue this conversation, privately." Every survival instinct Shawnee possessed screamed at her to refuse, but when she looked into those eyes and saw the same reckless hunger she felt burning through her own veins, saw something deeper, something almost like longing, rational thought became impossible. "Lead the way," she whispered. His smile was pure sin. "Dengsinen naral mangchil goya." "You're going to ruin me." If only he knew how right he was. But as they stood, as his hand found the small of her back and burned through her dress, Shawnee felt something twist in her chest, something that felt dangerously like regret. She pushed it down. She had a job to do. By morning, she'd be gone. The seal would be gone. And Kang Min-jae would learn that some thieves were far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. What Shawnee didn't know was that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because Min-jae didn't lose. Ever. And when he woke up and found both his seal and his mystery woman gone, he wouldn't just hunt her down, he'd make her his. Min-jae woke to silence. Not the comfortable silence of his penthouse in Gangnam, but the hollow quiet of a hotel room that felt too empty. His head pounded with a dull ache that didn't match the amount of whiskey he remembered drinking. Training and instinct kicked in before his eyes fully opened. Something was wrong. He reached across the bed. Cold sheets, empty. His eyes snapped open, and the room came into sharp focus. Morning light filtered through curtains he didn't remember closing. His jacket hung on a chair. His shoes sat by the door, placed with care. Everything looked normal except for one glaring detail. Shawnee was gone. Min-jae sat up slowly, his body moving through the fog of whatever she'd given him. Drugged. He'd been drugged. The realization should have triggered cold fury. He'd killed men for less. Instead, what hit him first was the absence of her warmth beside him, the ghost of her perfume on his pillow, the memory of how her hand had felt under his, how her pulse had jumped when he'd stroked her knuckles, how her breath had caught when his hand found her thigh, the way she'd leaned close enough for him to feel the heat of her skin, smell something sweet and warm that was just her. He pushed off the bed and moved to the safe in the closet. Empty. The Josian seal, worth 10 million in years of searching, had vanished with the woman who'd looked at him last night, like he was the answer to questions she hadn't asked yet. The woman whose laugh had done something dangerous to his chest. The woman he'd almost confessed to, before survival instinct had made him stop. Min-jae stood there staring at the empty safe and felt something crack open inside him. She'd played him. Perfectly. Every word, every look, every breathless moment when her pulse had raced under his thumb, all of it designed to get him here. Drugged and robbed and completely undone. He should have been furious. Instead, he started laughing. It came out rough and a little unhinged, echoing in the empty suite. Because of course, the first woman to make him feel something real in a decade was a thief clever enough to drug a mafia boss and disappear with his prize. Toktokan Yoja. Smart woman. His phone buzzed. 15 missed calls from Jiho, 3 texts from his sister. Min-jae ignored them all and opened his laptop with hands that weren't quite steady. If Shawnee Williams thought disappearing would save her, she was about to learn a very specific lesson about him. Min-jae didn't lose. Ever. And he sure as hell didn't let go of things that were his. She'd stolen his seal. Fine. He'd steal her right back. He pulled up every database he had access to, and Min-jae had access to most of them. Banking records, flight manifests, security footage from the hotel. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, even as his mind kept circling back to her. The way she'd challenged him at the auction, how she hadn't flinched when he'd grabbed her wrist. That moment in the bar when she'd leaned close and he'd felt her breath against his ear, warm and deliberate, and every coherent thought had scattered. He'd wanted to taste her, wanted to pull her into his lap and find out if she'd melt or fight back, wanted to hear what sounds she'd make when Min-jae forced his focus back to the screen. Within an hour, he had her digital footprint mapped. What he found made something possessive and dark curl in his chest. Shawnee Williams was a ghost. No social media, no permanent address. She moved like smoke through legal systems, always one step ahead of consequences, specialized in retrieval for clients who wanted things that weren't for sale, fluent in 5 languages, a degree in international business she'd earned while working 3 jobs. She was brilliant, dangerous, everything he hadn't known he needed, and she was flying to Seoul, his soul. Min-jae leaned back, his mind racing through implications. She wouldn't come to his city unless she had to, which meant her client was here, which meant the broker, the ghost who'd been stealing Korean cultural treasures for 30 years, the target Min-jae had spent 3 years hunting, was within reach. His grandfather had died trying to recover those artifacts, spending his last years obsessed with returning Korea's stolen history. The seal had been bait, carefully leaked to known fences, designed to draw the broker into the open. Min-jae had planned every detail of that auction, turned it into an elaborate trap. Then Shawnee had walked in and shattered everything. But the broker could wait, because right now the only thing Min-jae wanted to hunt was the woman who'd made him feel alive for 3 hours before drugging him and vanishing. He checked her flight details. She'd land in Seoul in 14 hours, which gave him just enough time. Min-jae called Ji-ho. Clear my schedule for the next week. Everything. Hyung-nim, the Busan meeting, canceled. I'm coming home. And I need surveillance on Incheon Airport. A woman, late 20s, African-American, traveling alone. Find her the moment she lands. What happened in Atlanta? What happened? Min-jae had met a woman who looked at him like he was a man instead of a monster, who'd challenged him and laughed at him and made his hands shake with want, who'd then proven she was exactly as dangerous as he'd sensed. I'll explain when I see you. Just find her, Ji-ho. And when you do? Min-jae's voice dropped, going rough. Don't approach. Don't scare her. Just watch. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she meets, every breath she takes in my city. He ended the call and booked the next flight to Seoul. Some people might call this obsession. Min-jae called it recognition. The moment their eyes had met across that auction house, something in him had known. She was his match, his equal, his. And now? Now she'd learn what happened when you tried to run from Kang Min-jae. But while Min-jae was busy planning his hunt, Shawnee was walking straight into a trap she didn't see coming. And it wasn't the one he'd set. Halfway across the world, Shawnee sat in a cafe 3 blocks from her hotel in Itaewon, nursing coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The seal was gone, delivered to a dead drop location that morning per her client's instructions. The wire transfer had hit her account, $200,000. Enough to disappear for a year if she wanted. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she kept seeing Min-jae's face. The way he'd looked at her in that bar like she was something precious. The tremor in his hand when he'd touched her. The raw vulnerability in his voice when he'd said, "Something in my chest," before stopping himself. The heat in his eyes when his palm had burned through the silk of her dress. "Get it together," she muttered, pressing her fingers against her temples. This was her job. She retrieved things for people who paid well and didn't ask questions. Emotions were a liability she couldn't afford, especially not for a crime lord who'd probably had her investigated before their second drink. A crime lord who'd offered to protect her, who'd looked at her like she was the answer to something, who she'd drugged and robbed. Her phone buzzed, an encrypted message from her client. "Gallery meeting tomorrow, 9 p.m. Gangnam, come alone." Shawnee's stomach dropped. She'd delivered the seal. This meeting wasn't part of the original agreement. Her client, the broker, though she'd only learned that name through very careful digging, never met face to face. Something was wrong. Outside the cafe window, Seoul moved with organized chaos. Street vendors sold taeokbokki and hodok. the spicy sweet smell drifting through open doors. Neon signs flickered to life as evening approached. Somewhere in this massive city, Min-jae was waking up. Was he furious? Had he already forgotten about her? The thought hurt more than it should. Stop it. She drugged him, robbed him. Whatever he'd felt, if he'd felt anything real, was gone now. He probably wanted her dead. But she couldn't forget the way he'd smiled at her, genuine and almost boyish. Couldn't forget how he'd offered to protect her from her dangerous client without knowing anything about her. How his grip had tightened on her hand like he was afraid she'd disappear. How right it had felt when he touched her. Shawnee paid for her coffee and stepped into Seoul's evening rush. The city swallowed her into its current. Millions of people, thousands of streets. The chances of running into Min-jae were basically zero. She had no idea he'd already boarded a plane. Had no idea his people were waiting at the airport with her photo. Had no idea that while she walked these crowded streets feeling safe in anonymity, he was hours away from landing in the same city. No idea that she wasn't the hunter anymore. She was the prey. Min-jae's plane touched down at Incheon 18 hours after he'd woken alone. He'd spent the flight planning, thinking, remembering. The way Shawnee had lifted her chin at the auction, defiant and beautiful. How she'd matched his verbal sparring without hesitation, the electricity when their knees touched under the table. Her skin, warm and soft under his palm, the hitch in her breath when he'd spoken Korean. He wanted more of that, more of her, all of her. Ji-ho met him at the private terminal looking concerned. Young-nim, you look fine. Min-jae took the tablet his second offered, scanning the surveillance photos. There, Shawnee at a cafe in Itaewon, looking exhausted and wary and so damn beautiful his chest ached. Another photo. Her walking through crowded streets trying to blend in, failing because how could someone like her ever be ordinary? She's been careful, Ji-ho reported. Switched hotels twice. Uses cash. No contact with known associates. She's meeting someone tomorrow night. A gallery in Gangnam, 9 p.m. Min-jae's finger traced the edge of the tablet where Shawnee's image smiled tiredly at nothing. I want the building secured, every exit watched, and I want her brought to the penthouse. Unharmed, Ji-ho. Not a scratch on her. Understand? His second's eyebrows rose. In 10 years, Min-jae had never brought a woman to the penthouse. Never shown interest beyond brief, forgettable encounters. Never looked at anyone the way he was looking at this photo. Hungry and possessive and borderline obsessed. Hyung-nim, who is she? Min-jae's smile was pure predator. The woman who thinks she got away with stealing from me. He climbed into the waiting car, Seoul's lights welcoming him home. 24 hours. That's all the freedom Shawnee had left before she walked into that gallery and found him waiting. And when she did, when those intelligent eyes widened with recognition and that beautiful face showed him fear and anger and, God, he hoped, that same desperate attraction, he'd teach her a very important lesson. You don't steal from Kang Min-jae and walk away. You don't make him feel things he'd forgotten he could feel, then disappear. You don't drug him, rob him, and run to his own city thinking you're safe. Because now she was in his world, his territory, his city, and tomorrow night he'd show her exactly what that meant. The gallery in Gangnam was all glass and white marble, the kind of place that screamed money and discretion in equal measure. Shawnee arrived 15 minutes early, wearing black jeans and a leather jacket that let her move fast if she needed to. Her instincts had been screaming at her all day. Something was wrong. The gallery was hosting a private viewing, abstract art that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Couples in expensive clothes sipped wine and murmured about composition and negative space. Shawnee accepted a glass of champagne from a server and positioned herself near the back exit. 9 p.m. came and went. No contact from the broker. 9:15. Still nothing. Shawnee's grip tightened on her glass. This was a setup. She should leave. Should walk out the door and disappear into Seoul's millions. But she needed to know why the broker had called this meeting. Needed to understand what she'd gotten herself into. At 9:30, the lights dimmed. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced in Korean, "we have a special piece to unveil tonight, a private acquisition." The crowd murmured with interest, moving toward the center of the gallery. Shawnee stayed where she was, every nerve on high alert. A curtain dropped, revealing a single spotlight, and standing in that circle of light, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, was Kang Min-jae. Shawnee's breath stopped. The champagne glass trembled in her hand as their eyes locked across the crowded room. No, this wasn't possible. He was supposed to be in Atlanta, waking up furious, maybe even forgetting about her eventually. Not here, not now, not looking at her like a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. His smile was slow, dangerous, and absolutely devastating. "Found you," he mouthed. The recognition rippled through the crowd. Whispers in Korean, people stepping back, the atmosphere shifting from cultured to dangerous in seconds. Everyone in Seoul's underground knew that face, knew what it meant when Kang Min-jae showed up somewhere uninvited. It meant someone was about to have a very bad night. Shawnee set down her glass carefully and ran. She spun toward the back exit, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. But the door opened before she reached it, and two men in suits blocked her path. Not threatening, just immovable, stone-faced and clearly Min-jae's. She turned. The main entrance, two more men. Side door, blocked. Every exit had been sealed while she'd stood there like an idiot, waiting for a client who was never coming. Because Min-jae had intercepted the meeting. Of course he had. The gallery guests were leaving now, hurrying toward the exits with their heads down, not wanting any part of whatever this was. Smart people. Within minutes, the space had cleared except for Shawnee, Min-jae, and his men stationed at every door. The silence felt suffocating. Min-jae walked toward her, his movements predatory and unhurried. He had all the time in the world. She had nowhere to run. "You look beautiful when you're calculating," he said in English, his accent wrapping around the words like smoke. He stopped a few feet away, and she could see the dangerous glitter in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "I can see you counting exits, finding none, realizing you're trapped." "I'm not trapped." Shawnee lifted her chin even though her pulse was racing so fast she felt dizzy. "I could scream, make a scene." "You could." He took another step closer and she caught his scent, that same dark cologne from Atlanta. "But you won't. Because you're smart enough to know that the only thing between you and a very public arrest right now is my goodwill. And we both know how you earn that goodwill, don't we?" Heat flooded her face. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" Min-jae's laugh was low and rough. "I want to understand why you thought drugging me was a good idea. I want my property back. I want—" He stopped close enough now that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I want a lot of things, Shawnee, and we're going to discuss all of them, privately. I'm not going anywhere with you." "Yes, you are." He said it with absolute certainty, his gaze dropping to her mouth before returning to her eyes. "Because your options are limited, and we both know it. Come with me and we talk. Refuse, and I make one phone call that turns you into Seoul's most wanted. Your choice." Shawnee's nails bit into her palms. She was cornered, and they both knew it. But damned if she'd make it easy for him. "If I come with you, your men stay outside. Whatever conversation we're having, it's between us." Something flickered in Min-jae's eyes. Approval, maybe. Agreed. He didn't offer his arm or try to touch her, just turned and walked toward the door, confident she'd follow. And she did, because what other choice did she have? But what neither of them knew, what they couldn't know as they left that gallery, was that someone else had been watching. Someone who didn't appreciate Kang Min-jae interfering with carefully laid plans, and that someone was about to make both their lives infinitely more complicated. The car was sleek and black and probably bulletproof. Shawnee climbed in, hyper-aware of Min-jae sliding in beside her. Too close. The space felt too small, too intimate, filled with his presence and the memory of Atlanta. "How did you find me?" she asked as the car pulled into traffic. I'm very good at finding things. He didn't look at her, just stared out the window at Seoul's glittering streets, especially things that interest me. I'm not a thing. No. Now he turned, and the intensity in his gaze made her stomach flip. You're the woman who made me feel human for 3 hours, then proved you're exactly as dangerous as I suspected, which makes you far more interesting than anything. Shawnee's mouth went dry. She forced herself to look away to focus on the passing buildings. It was a job. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. He repeated it slowly like he was testing the words. Is that what you tell yourself? That it meant nothing when I touched you and your pulse jumped? When you looked at me like... He stopped, jaw clenching. Nothing personal. Minja, don't. His voice went rough. Don't say my name like that, like it means something. Then what do you want me to say? The truth. He shifted, and suddenly his body was angled toward hers, close enough that she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands flexed like he wanted to touch her and was fighting. Tell me the truth, Shawnee. When you drugged me, when you took that seal and ran, did you feel anything? Any hesitation? Any regret? She should lie. Should tell him it meant nothing, that he meant nothing. But she was tired of lying. Tired of pretending that Atlanta hadn't cracked something open inside her. Yes, she whispered. I felt everything. That was the problem. The air in the car went electric. Min-jae went very still, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that stole her breath. Say that again, he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. No. Shawnee, we're here. The car had stopped in front of a building that screamed wealth and power. Shawnee reached for the door handle, desperate for space, for air, for anything that wasn't the way Min-jae was looking at her. His hand caught her wrist, not rough, but firm. Inescapable. You don't get to drop that on me and run again, he said quietly. Not this time. Let go. Not until you look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. I need you to understand something. The seal? I don't give a damn about the seal. The broker? He can wait. But you... His thumb found her pulse point, pressed against it deliberately. You, I'm not letting go of. Not until I understand what this is between us. There's nothing between us. You don't even know me. Then let me. His grip softened but didn't release. Come upstairs, talk to me. Help me understand why you're working for a man who's been destroying my country's history for 3 decades. Shawnee froze. What? The broker? You think he's just some collector? Min-jae's expression hardened. He's been systematically stealing Korean cultural treasures since before you were born, selling our history to the highest bidder. My grandfather died trying to stop him. Guilt and anger twisted in Shawnee's stomach. I didn't know. I believe you. He released her wrist but didn't move away. But now you do. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? The building's doorman opened the car door and Min-jae climbed out, then turned back to her, waiting, not dragging her, not forcing her, giving her a choice. Shawnee knew she should run, should disappear into Seoul's millions and never look back. But something in his eyes, that same vulnerability she'd seen in Atlanta, that crack in his armor, made her follow him inside. The penthouse took up the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern minimalism, Seoul spread out below like a sea of lights. It was beautiful and cold and somehow lonely. Your men? Shawnee asked, watching 3 of them take positions outside the door. Outside, as promised. Min-jae shrugged off his jacket, and Shawnee tried not to notice how the movement revealed more of his tattoos, how they crawled up his arms and disappeared under his shirt. Dragons and geometric patterns and Korean characters she couldn't quite read. Drink? Absolutely not. His smile was sharp. Smart girl. He poured himself whiskey and leaned against the bar, studying her. You know what I kept thinking about on the flight here. How to kill me slowly. How you tasted. The words came out rough, and Shawnee's breath caught. I never got to find out. You drugged me first. I kept thinking about that, about how close I was to kissing you, to finding out if you'd melt or fight back, if you'd make those little sounds I imagined when I... Stop. Shawnee's face burned. Why? You wanted the truth. He took a slow sip of whiskey, his eyes never leaving hers. Here's my truth. I woke up alone, and the first thing I felt wasn't anger. It was loss. Loss of something I never even had. And that, he set down the glass, that made me furious, because you made me want something. And I don't want things anymore, Shawnee. I take them. Then what am I doing here? I haven't decided yet. He pushed off the bar and moved toward her, slow and deliberate. Part of me wants to punish you for Atlanta, show you exactly what happens when you steal from me. Shawnee's heart hammered, but she held her ground. And the other part? Wants to finish what we started. He stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel his breath on her face. Wants to find out if this thing between us is real or if you're just that good at your job. There's nothing between us. Liar. His hand came up slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. His fingers traced her jaw, feather-light, and she shivered despite herself. Your pulse is racing. You're breathing faster. And you're looking at my mouth like you're remembering Atlanta, too. I'm not. Tell me you didn't think about me on that flight here. His thumb brushed her bottom lip, and Shawnee's breath hitched. Tell me you didn't wonder what would have happened if you hadn't drugged me, if we'd... Don't. But her voice came out breathless, betraying her. Why not? His other hand settled on her hip, warm and possessive. You already admitted you felt everything. So stop lying to both of us and admit what this is. What is it? Shawnee challenged, even as her body betrayed her by swaying toward him. Dangerous. His forehead nearly touched hers. Reckless. Probably going to destroy us both. His hand tightened on her hip. But I don't care. Because for the first time in 10 years, I feel something other than empty, and I'm not letting that go. You don't let go of anything, Shawnee whispered. That's your problem. No. His lips brushed her ear, and she felt the words as much as heard them. My problem is that I've already decided you're mine, and you're still pretending you don't feel the same way. Shawnee should push him away, should tell him he was insane, that this would never work, that she'd betrayed him and would probably do it again. Instead, she heard herself whisper, what if I do feel the same way? What then? Min-jae's control finally, completely snapped. His mouth crashed into hers, not gentle, not asking permission, but claiming. His hand fisted in her hair, angling her head as he kissed her like he was trying to prove a point, like he was branding her, like he'd been starving for this and was finally allowed to take. And God help her, Shawnee kissed him back just as desperately. Kissing Min-jae was like falling off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating and impossible to stop once you'd started. Shawnee's back hit the wall, though she didn't remember moving. Min-jae's body pressed against hers, all hard muscle and controlled power, one hand still fisted in her hair, while the other gripped her hip like he was afraid she'd disappear again. She should stop this, should push him away and leave before this became more complicated than it already was. Instead, her hands found his shirt, pulling him closer. Min-jae made a sound low in his throat, half groan, half growl, and deepened the kiss. He tasted like whiskey and want, and something darker she couldn't name. His teeth caught her bottom lip, and Shawnee gasped against his mouth. Say it, he demanded, pulling back just enough to look at her. His pupils were blown wide, his breathing ragged. Say you feel this too. You're insane, Shawnee whispered. Say it. His hand slid from her hip to the small of her back, pressing her impossibly closer. She could feel every hard plane of his body, feel the tension thrumming through him. Because I'm about 2 seconds from losing whatever control I have left, and I need to know I'm not alone in this. Shawnee looked into those dark eyes and saw desperation there, raw need, the same hunger that was clawing through her own chest. I feel it, she admitted. God help me, I feel it. Min-jae's smile was fierce and triumphant, and a little bit feral. Good. He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less devastating. His mouth moved from her lips to her jaw, down her throat, and Shawnee's head fell back against the wall as sensation flooded through her. His teeth scraped against her pulse point, and she felt him smile against her skin when she shivered. "I've been imagining this," he murmured against her throat, his voice rough. "Since Atlanta. Since you walked into that auction house like you owned it. Since you challenged me and didn't flinch. Minjai, I imagined how you'd taste." His lips found the sensitive spot below her ear, and Shawnee's knees went weak. "How you'd sound." His hand slid up her side, thumb brushing the underside of her chest through her shirt, and she made a sound she'd never made before. Exactly like that. Shawnee's breath caught. Her hands found his shoulders, nails digging in. "We shouldn't." "Probably not." He pulled back to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze stole what little breath she had left. His hand came up to cup her face, surprisingly gentle. "Tell me to stop, and I will. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll let you walk out that door right now." It would be so easy to lie, to protect herself, to run before this became something she couldn't walk away from. But Shawnee was tired of running, tired of pretending she didn't feel this pull toward him that defied all logic and self-preservation. "I can't," she whispered. "Can't what?" "Can't tell you to stop." Her hand slid up his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. "Can't tell you I don't want this, can't—" Minjai kissed her again, swallowing whatever she'd been about to say. This kiss was different, deeper, more deliberate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. His hands were everywhere, her face, her hair, her waist, like he couldn't decide where to touch her first. Shawnee's fingers found his shirt buttons, fumbling with them until Minjai made an impatient sound and pulled the shirt over his head instead. She'd seen glimpses of his tattoos before, but now— "Oh," she breathed. Dragons covered his chest and arms in intricate detail, traditional Korean style mixed with geometric patterns. They seemed to move in the low light, coiling around his muscles like living things. Across his ribs, Korean characters in bold strokes, Yonggi and Kungsong, courage and loyalty. "Like what you see." His voice was rough with amusement and want. "Shut up," Shawnee muttered, but her hands were already tracing the lines of ink, following them down his chest, feeling the way his muscles tensed under her touch. Minjai sucked in a sharp breath, his abs contracting. "Careful. I'm trying very hard to go slow here." "Who asked you to go slow?" His eyes darkened to nearly black. "Josong Hajiman. Sorry, but you're making this very difficult." "Good." He kissed her again, harder this time, walking her backward until her legs hit the couch. His mouth never left hers as his hands slid under her shirt, palms hot against her skin. Shawnee arched into his touch, wanting more, wanting— Her phone buzzed. They both froze. The sound was jarring in the heated silence, pulling them back to reality with brutal efficiency. "Ignore it," Minjai said roughly, his forehead against hers. But it buzzed again, and again, insistent, demanding. Shawnee pulled away from him, already missing his warmth, and dug the phone from her pocket with shaking hands. An unknown number. A text that made her blood run cold. "You missed our meeting." That was disappointing. "Tell Kang Minjai he should know better than to interfere with my business. Tabis?" But here's the thing about secrets. They never stay buried for long, and what the broker was about to reveal would shatter everything Shawnee thought she knew about the man currently half naked in front of her. Some truths don't just hurt, they destroy. "What is it?" Minjai was beside her instantly, reading over her shoulder. She watched his expression shift from frustrated to furious. "Zhenjiang." Damn it. Another message came through before Shawnee could process the first. "I want my property returned by tomorrow night. But first, let me give Ms. Williams some information she might find enlightening." Shawnee's hands started shaking. Her father's business in Atlanta, the competitors who destroyed it through sabotage and legal manipulation. They had financial backing from Seoul, from the Kang family, specifically from the organization run by Min Jae's uncle, before he disappeared and became the broker. Small world, isn't it? The phone slipped from Shawnee's fingers. Time seemed to stop. She looked at Minjai, really looked at him, and saw the truth written all over his face, the guilt, the knowledge, the resignation. "Tell me he's lying," she whispered. Minjai's jaw clenched. He bent to pick up her phone, handed it back to her, his movements careful, controlled. "Shawnee, tell me he's lying." Her voice cracked. "He's not." Minjai's voice was quiet, too quiet. "My uncle, before he became the broker, before he disappeared 8 years ago, he ran parts of our family's international operations, including investments in Atlanta, including—" He stopped, his hands curling into fists at his sides, "including destroying my father." Shawnee's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Your family destroyed mine. My uncle destroyed a lot of people." Minjai took a careful step toward her, and she stepped back instinctively. Pain flashed across his face. "That's why I've been hunting him for 3 years. That's why the seal was bait. That's why, when he disappeared, I took over and spent years trying to undo the damage he'd done." "When did you know?" Shawnee's nails bit into her palms. "When did you know it was my family?" "After Atlanta." He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "I investigated you after the auction. Standard procedure for anyone bidding against me. I found the connection to your father's business, traced it back to my uncle's operations. By then you'd already drugged me and run. By then I was already—" "Don't." Shawnee held up a hand, her whole body shaking now. "Don't you dare say you already cared. Don't make this into some romantic tragedy when your family destroyed everything my father built, when they killed him." Minjai went very still. "What?" "He died." The words came out flat, emotionless, because if she let herself feel them, she'd break. 3 years after we lost everything. Heart attack, the doctors said. But I know better. I watched him die slowly, piece by piece, knowing he'd been defeated by people more powerful and ruthless than he ever could have imagined. And now, you're telling me— Her voice broke. "You're telling me it was your family, your blood." "Shawnee, I didn't know about your father's death. I swear to God I didn't know." Minjai's voice was raw. "If I had known— What? What would you have done differently?" She laughed, bitter and broken. "Would you not have kissed me? Not have looked at me like I was something precious? Not have made me feel—" She stopped herself. "Feel what?" He took another step toward her. "Say it." "Safe." The word came out as a whisper. "You made me feel safe. And the whole time, your family was the reason I've spent my entire adult life looking over my shoulder, trusting no one, doing whatever it takes to survive because I learned that the world destroys the weak." Minjai looked like she'd physically struck him. "I'm not my uncle. I'm not my family. What I feel for you—" "Stop." Shawnee grabbed her jacket from where it had fallen. "Just stop. I can't do this. I can't be here with you knowing what I know now." "Where are you going?" He moved to block her path to the door, but didn't touch her. "It's not safe out there. The broker is watching you. My uncle is your uncle." She said it like a curse. "The same uncle who killed my father, who destroyed my childhood, who made me into—" She gestured at herself. "This, someone who steals and lies and drugs people because that's what you have to do to survive in the world men like him created. Then let me help you destroy him." Minjai's voice was desperate now, pleading. "Let me make this right. Let me—" "You can't make this right." Shawnee's voice rose, years of buried pain finally breaking free. "You can't bring my father back. You can't give me back the years I spent watching my mother work herself to death. You can't undo the fact that I'm standing here falling for a man whose family is the reason I learned to never trust anyone." The silence that followed was deafening. "You're falling for me," Minjai said quietly. "Don't." Shawnee's eyes burned with unshed tears. "Don't make that the thing you focus on right now. It's the only thing that matters." He did touch her then, his hand cupping her face with heartbreaking gentleness. "Because I'm falling for you too. Have been since Atlanta. Maybe even before that, in the auction house, when you looked at me like I was just a man instead of a monster." Maybe you are a monster. But she didn't pull away from his touch. Maybe I am. His thumb brushed away a tear that had finally escaped. But I'm a monster who wants to destroy the man who hurt you, who wants to give you back everything he took, who wants... His voice broke. Who wants you to look at me the way you did in Atlanta, before all of this, when you didn't know my name or my history, when I was just someone you might have wanted. Shawnee stopped herself, but it was too late. You still what? Min-jae's forehead touched hers. Say it, Shawnee, please. I still want you. It came out broken and angry and true, and I hate myself for it. I hate that knowing what your family did doesn't change how I feel when you touch me. I hate that I'm standing here wanting to kiss you when I should be walking out that door and never looking back. Then don't walk away. His other hand found her waist, pulling her close. Stay. Fight with me. Hate me if you need to, but don't leave. Not when we're this close to ending him. Not when... His voice dropped to a whisper. Not when I just found you. Shawnee looked up at him, at this dangerous, complicated man who'd hunted her across continents, who'd looked at her like she hung the moon, whose family had destroyed hers. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Tomorrow night, Namsun Tower Observation Deck, 9 p.m. You both know what I want. Bring it, or Seoul learns everything about the Kang family's operations. And Ms. Williams, I have more to tell you about who really has your precious seal. Ask Min-jae where it is. Shawnee's blood went cold. She looked up at Min-jae slowly. Where's the seal? His expression shuddered. Shawnee, where is the seal? Each word came out sharp. Min-jae's jaw worked. I have it. You... The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. You have it? How? I intercepted your dead drop. He said it quietly, like that would somehow make it better. My people were watching you from the moment you landed. When you made the drop that morning, we took it before the broker's people could retrieve it. Shawnee stepped back, his hand falling away from her face. You've had it this whole time, while I was panicking about the meeting, while I was... She laughed, the sound broken. Of course you did, because that's what this has always been about, hasn't it? The seal. Not me, the hunt. No. Min-jae reached for her, but she dodged. That's not. Shawnee, I took the seal to protect you, to keep you from delivering it to him, to give us leverage. Leverage. She repeated the word like it tasted bitter. And when were you planning to tell me? Before or after you got what you wanted from me? It's not like that. Then what is it like? She was shouting now, past caring. Explain to me how any of this is real when you've been lying to me since the moment I walked into that gallery, when your family destroyed mine, when you've been playing me just as much as I played you in Atlanta. I haven't been playing you. Min-jae's voice rose to match hers. Everything I said tonight was true. Everything I feel is real. I took that seal to protect you, not manipulate you. I don't believe you. The words hung between them, final and devastating. Min-jae's expression crumbled. Shawnee, no. She held up a hand. I'm done. Tomorrow night, I'm going to that tower. I'm going to face the broker, and I'm going to end this. But I'm doing it alone. The hell you are. You don't get a say anymore. She moved toward the door. Keep your seal. Keep your guilt. Keep whatever twisted thing you think this is between us. I'm done being a pawn in the Kang family's games. If you walk out that door, you're walking to your death. Min-jae's voice was raw. He'll kill you, Shawnee. The moment you show up without the seal, without backup, he'll kill you. Then I die on my terms. She grabbed the door handle. Not yours. Not his. Mine. Shawnee, please. She walked out. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the empty penthouse. Min-jae stood frozen, staring at where she'd been, his chest tight with something that felt dangerously close to panic. He'd lost her, after everything, after Atlanta, after finding her, after finally admitting what he felt. He'd lost her because of his own manipulation, because he'd been so focused on the hunt, on destroying his uncle, that he'd forgotten the woman he was supposed to be protecting had her own agency, her own choice. His phone buzzed. Ji-ho? Young Nim. She left the building. Should we follow? Min-jae typed back with shaking hands. Yes. Don't let her out of your sight. But don't approach. Just keep her safe. Then he sank onto the couch, where minutes ago he'd held her, kissed her, felt her want him back. Tomorrow night at Namsun Tower, everything would end. He just prayed they'd both survive it. And that maybe, she'd give him one more chance to prove that what he felt was real, even if he didn't deserve it. Shawnee didn't go back to her hotel. She walked through Gangnam's glittering streets, past luxury boutiques and late-night restaurants, through crowds of people who had no idea she was falling apart. The Seoul night was cold, but she barely felt it. All she could feel was the weight of every betrayal, every lie, every moment she'd let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could trust someone. Her phone buzzed constantly. Min-jae. She ignored every call, every text. By the time she found herself at a Pojangmacha, a street tent selling soju and anju, it was past midnight. She slid onto a plastic stool and ordered a bottle without looking at the ajumma running the place. Honja? Alone? The woman asked, concerned. Yes. The soju burned going down. Good. She wanted to feel something other than this hollow ache in her chest. You look like you've had a terrible night, someone said in English. Shawnee looked up. A woman sat down beside her, mid-30s, elegant in a way that seemed effortless, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Korean, but her English was flawless, accent American educated. I'm not interested in company, Shawnee said. Good, neither am I. The woman ordered her own bottle. But misery loves misery, and you look about as miserable as I feel. Despite everything, Shawnee felt her lips twitch. Bad night? Bad year. The woman poured them both shots. Jeonbai. Cheers. They drank in silence for a moment. Then the woman said, Let me guess. Man trouble? Is it that obvious? You're drinking alone at a Pojangmacha at midnight. It's either man trouble or you just lost everything you own. Sometimes both. The woman's smile was knowing. I'm Min-seo, by the way. Kang Min-seo. Shawnee went very still. You're his sister. Yes. Min-seo's eyes were sharp but not unkind. My brother has people tracking you. For your safety, he claims. When you left his building, I told them to back off and let me find you instead. Figured you'd want to talk to someone who isn't him. I don't want to talk to anyone in his family. Understandable. Min-seo poured another shot. But I'm here anyway, because in about 18 hours you're planning to walk into something that will get you killed. And despite what you think of my brother right now, watching you die would destroy him. That's not my problem. No, your problem is our uncle. Min-seo's voice went cold. The broker, the man who destroyed your father and is now using you to get to Min-jae. She leaned closer. He's not going to negotiate with you tomorrow night. He's going to kill you the moment you show up. How do you know what I'm planning? Because I know that look. Min-seo gestured at Shawnee's face. That's the look of someone who's tired of being a victim, who's ready to face the monster even if it kills them. She paused. I wore that look for 3 years after our uncle disappeared and left Min-jae to clean up his massacre. Shawnee studied her. You hate him too, your uncle. With everything I have. Min-seo's smile was bitter. He destroyed our family, turned our name into something to fear, made my brother into someone he never wanted to be. She took a slow sip. But here's what you need to understand about Min-jae. Every decision he's made since our uncle disappeared has been about undoing that damage, returning stolen artifacts, shutting down operations that hurt people, trying to be better than what he inherited. That doesn't excuse lying to me. No, it doesn't. Min-seo agreed. My brother is brilliant at strategy and terrible at honesty, especially when he's terrified. She met Shawnee's eyes. And you terrify him, because for the first time in 10 years, he has something to lose. Shawnee's hands shook around her shot glass. I didn't ask for this. Neither did he. Min-seo stood, leaving cash on the table. Tomorrow night, whether you show up or not, Min-jae will be at that tower. probably doing something monumentally stupid to protect you. She paused. The question is, are you going to let him face our uncle alone? Or are you going to at least consider that maybe his feelings for you are the one real thing in all of this? She walked away into Seoul's neon night, leaving Shawnee alone with too many thoughts and not enough answers. But what Shawnee didn't know, what she couldn't know as she poured another shot and tried to make sense of the wreckage her life had become, was that the broker wasn't just planning to kill her. He was planning to make her choose, and the choice he'd force on her would be so much worse than death. Shawnee woke up in her hotel room with her head pounding. Sunlight streamed through the window. Afternoon sunlight. She'd lost hours. Her phone showed 23 missed calls from Min-jae, 5 from an unknown number, and 1 new text that made her blood run cold. Ms. Williams. Tonight at 9 p.m., Namsan Tower observation deck. Come, and I'll give you proof that your father was innocent. Proof that the Kang family framed him for crimes he didn't commit. He died thinking he was a failure. But I can give you the truth. Your choice. B. Shawnee's hands shook. Proof. Evidence that her father hadn't failed, hadn't been guilty, hadn't died in shame. Everything in her scream trap. But what if it wasn't? Another text from Min-jae. Please answer. I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve your trust. But don't go tonight. Whatever he's promising you, it's a lie designed to get you killed. Please, Shawnee. MJ. A knock at her door made her jump. Shawnee. Min-jae's voice rough and exhausted. I know you're in there. Please, just listen. She opened the door. He looked wrecked. Eyes bloodshot, hair disheveled, the same clothes from last night wrinkled and worn, like he hadn't slept, like he'd been falling apart. How did you find me? I own this hotel. He said it quietly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come, but I needed to see that you were okay. I'm not okay. Shawnee crossed her arms. Your uncle just offered me proof of my father's innocence. His jaw clenched. It's a trap. What if it's not? It is. He stepped into the room carefully. Shawnee, my uncle knows exactly what you want most, and he's dangling it to get you alone, to kill you, to hurt me through you. So this is about you? Her laugh was bitter. No. Min-jae's voice went rough. It's about you. It's about the fact that losing you would break something in me that can't be fixed. The raw honesty made her chest tight. You don't get to lie to me, manipulate me, and then show up saying things like that. I know. The devastation in his eyes nearly undid her. But I'm going to that tower tonight whether you want me to or not. And if he tries to hurt you, I will burn everything to the ground. You should have trusted me to make my own choices. You're right. His voice cracked. But I've spent 10 years making impossible choices and trusting someone else to keep themselves safe? That's not something I know how to do, especially not when it's you. Shawnee wanted to stay angry, but the exhaustion in his face, the tremor in his hands, it was breaking down her walls. He says he has proof, she whispered, about my father. What if I never get another chance? Then we get it together. Min-jae's hands hovered near her face. Please, Shawnee, let me stand beside you tonight. Not because you need protection, because I need to know you walk away from this alive. I still don't trust you. I know. Pain flickered across his face. But right now, let me help you. Let me face the man who destroyed both our families with you. Shawnee looked at him and saw the truth beneath the lies, saw someone as broken and desperate as she was. If you lie to me again, I won't, I swear. His hand touched her face, gentle and trembling. No more games, just honesty, even when it's ugly. One chance, she said. Tonight we go together. We get that proof. We end this. And then I decide if I can ever forgive you. Hope flickered in Min-jae's eyes. That's all I'm asking. But we do this my way. No more controlling the situation. We're equals, or I walk. Equals, he agreed immediately. Complete transparency. And Min-jae, no matter what he says tonight, don't believe him until we verify it. Together. His eyes searched hers. Promise me that. I promise. Min-jae pulled her into his arms, and she let him hold her. let herself take comfort in not being alone for just a moment. But in 4 hours, they'd face the broker. And the truth about her father, about his family, about what they meant to each other, would finally come to light. One way or another, tonight would end everything. The only question was, would they both survive it? Namsan Tower rose into Seoul's night sky like a glowing sentinel, its observation deck offering 360-degree views of the city sprawling below. Normally, it would be packed with tourists and couples attaching love locks to the fences. Tonight, it was empty, except for the people the broker had paid to clear it. Shani and Minjae arrived separately. Her plan, not his. She'd insisted on maintaining some illusion of control, even though they both knew the broker would see through it. Minjae's people were stationed throughout the tower, hidden but ready. Ji-ho waited 3 floors down with backup. Shani stepped onto the observation deck at exactly 9 p.m. The wind whipped her hair around her face, carrying the scent of Seoul, exhaust, and tteokbokki from street vendors below, and something sharper, danger. "Ms. Williams!" The voice came from the shadows near the northern edge. "Right on time. I appreciate punctuality." The broker stepped into the light, and Shani's breath caught. He looked like Minjae, same sharp features, same predatory grace, but older, with gray threading through his dark hair and eyes that held nothing but cold calculation. No warmth, no humanity, just ambition wrapped in expensive clothes. "Where's the proof?" Shani demanded. "Direct! I like that." The broker smiled, and it was nothing like Minjae's rare, genuine smiles. This was a shark showing teeth. "But first, where's my nephew? Don't insult my intelligence by pretending you came alone." "I'm here." Minjae emerged from the opposite side of the deck, and Shani watched his expression shift when he saw his uncle for the first time in 8 years. Pain, rage, something that looked dangerously close to grief. "Samchon." "Uncle." "Minjae-ya." The broker's voice held mock affection. "Look at you, all grown up, running my organization, playing crime lord." He tilted his head. "Tell me, nephew, does it feel good? Being exactly what I made you?" "I'm nothing like you," Minjae said quietly, but his hands were clenched into fists. "No?" The broker laughed. "You took over my operations, my territory. You use my methods, intimidation, control, violence when necessary. The only difference is you pretend to have a conscience about it." His eyes slid to Shani. "And now you've dragged this poor woman into our family's mess. How noble." "The proof," Shani cut in. "You said you had proof about my father." "I do." The broker pulled out a manila envelope from inside his coat. Documentation showing that the Kang family, specifically my operation, not only destroyed your father's business, but framed him for embezzlement and fraud. Crimes he never committed. Evidence that was buried. Witnesses who were paid off. Officials who were bribed. He held up the envelope. "Everything you need to clear his name." Shani's heart hammered. "Let me see it." "Of course. But first, I want something in return." The broker's smile widened. "A choice. A trade, if you will." "What kind of trade?" Minjae moved closer to Shani, his body angling protectively. "Simple." The broker gestured between them. "Ms. Williams gets the proof she wants. Her father's name cleared. Justice finally served. All she has to do is walk away. Leave Seoul. Leave my nephew. Forget any of this ever happened." He paused. "Or she can stay with you, Minjae. Choose your family's destroyer as her lover. And I keep this evidence buried forever, ensuring her father's name remains tarnished for eternity." The observation deck went silent except for the wind. "That's not a choice," Shani whispered. "That's cruelty. That's reality." The broker's expression didn't change. "Everything has a price, Ms. Williams. Your father's vindication, the price is my nephew's heart. A fair trade, I think. After all, my family destroyed yours. Why shouldn't you get to destroy something of ours in return?" "You're insane," Minjae said, his voice shaking with rage. "I'm practical." The broker turned to him. You cost me 8 years, nephew. 8 years of hiding, rebuilding, watching you play hero with my organization. And now I'm going to cost you the one thing you actually care about." Shawnee's mind raced. This was the trap, the impossible choice designed to destroy them both, no matter what she picked. But the broker had made one critical mistake. He assumed she'd play by his rules, and Shawnee Williams had spent her entire life learning that the best way to win was to change the game entirely. "There's a third option," she said slowly. The broker raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I take the proof. I stay with Minjai, and you get nothing." Bold, but unfortunately. The broker pulled out a lighter, flicked it open near the envelope. "I don't think you understand your position here." "Don't I?" Shawnee took a step forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "You want to hurt Minjai. You want him to watch me choose justice over him, watch me walk away, prove that he's unlovable. That's your real game, not the seal, not the proof, just destruction for its own sake." The broker's smile faltered slightly. "But here's what you didn't count on," Shawnee continued. "I don't need that proof, not the way you think I do." Minjay's head snapped toward her. "Shawnee, my father was a good man." Her voice strengthened. "I know that. My mother knows that. Everyone who actually knew him knows that. And yes, having documentation would be nice, but you know what matters more?" She looked at Minjay. "Not letting you destroy something real just because you're bitter about losing your empire." The broker's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe." Shawnee shrugged. "But it's my mistake to make, not yours." "Touching speech." The broker's hand moved, and suddenly there was a gun pointed at Shawnee. "But I'm afraid I can't let either of you leave here. You see, my original plan was to make you choose. But this works better. Minjay watches you die, knowing it's his fault for bringing you into this. Much more devastating, don't you think?" Everything happened at once. Minjay lunged forward with a shout. The broker's finger tightened on the trigger, and Shawnee, who'd spent 6 years learning to survive, dropped and rolled, her hand finding the knife she'd hidden in her boot. The gunshot cracked through the night, but Shawnee was already moving, throwing the knife with precision born of necessity. It buried itself in the broker's shoulder, and he screamed, the gun clattering to the ground. Minjay was on him in seconds, his fist connecting with his uncle's jaw with a sickening crack. They went down in a tangle of limbs, years of betrayal and rage, finally erupting into violence. "Minjay, stop!" Shawnee grabbed the gun, kicked it away. "He's not worth it!" But Minjay had his uncle by the throat, his face a mask of fury. "Neon ne gajokil mangchin gyoya." "You destroyed my family. Ne halabeoji lil jogyoseo." "You killed my grandfather. He was weak." The broker spat blood. "Just like you're weak, for her." Minjay's hand tightened, and for a moment Shawnee thought he might actually kill him. "Minjay." She touched his shoulder gently. Don't become what he wants you to be." Something in her voice broke through. Minjay's grip loosened slightly, his chest heaving. "He deserves to die," Minjay said roughly. "Maybe." Shawnee knelt beside him. "But you deserve better than carrying that weight. Let the law handle him. Let him rot in prison knowing he lost everything. That's worse than death for men like him." Minjay looked at her, then at his uncle bleeding on the ground, then back at her. Slowly, painfully, he released his grip. "Ji-ho!" he called. His people flooded onto the deck. They'd been waiting for his signal. Ji-ho took one look at the broker and smiled coldly. "We have enough evidence to put him away for 3 lifetimes, Ji-ho said. "Financial crimes, art theft, fraud, conspiracy, and now attempted murder." He gestured to his men. "Take him, and make sure the prosecutors know everything." As they hauled the broker away, he looked back at Minjay. "This isn't over." "Yes," Minjay said quietly. "It is." The envelope lay on the ground where the broker had dropped it. Shawnee picked it up with shaking hands, her adrenaline finally crashing. "Are you okay?" Minjay was beside her instantly, his hands running over her arms, checking for injuries. "Did he hurt you? Are you I'm fine. She caught his hands, stilling them. Minjai, I'm fine. He pulled her into his arms and she felt him shaking. When he pointed that gun at you, His voice broke. I thought I'd lost you. You didn't. She pulled back to look at him. We're both here. We're both okay. You threw a knife at my uncle. I've had practice. A slightly hysterical laugh escaped her. Turns out surviving Atlanta's streets taught me some useful skills. Minjai's smile was shaky but real. Remind me never to make you angry. Too late for that. Fair. He cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Shawnee, what you did, choosing us over the proof, over your father's vindication. I didn't choose you over him. She held up the envelope. I chose not to let your uncle manipulate me. There's a difference. She paused. And we still have this. Let's see if it's real. They sat on a bench overlooking Seoul, and Shawnee opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were copies of bank transfers, emails, legal documents, all showing exactly what the broker had claimed. Evidence that her father had been framed, that he'd been innocent. Tears blurred her vision. It's real. We'll get this to the right people, Minjai said softly. Lawyers, journalists, whoever can help clear his name properly. Your father will get the justice he deserves, Shawnee. I promise you that. I know. She leaned into him, exhausted and relieved, and still processing everything. Thank you for not making me choose, for being willing to let it burn if that's what I needed. Some things matter more than winning, he said simply. You taught me that tonight. They sat in silence for a moment, Seoul glittering below them like a promise. So what happens now? Shawnee asked finally. Now? Minjai stood, pulling her up with him. Now we go home. We figure out how to clear your father's name. We take things one day at a time. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and we see if two broken people can build something whole together. I'm still angry with you sometimes, she warned. I know. And I don't trust easily. I know. And this is probably going to be complicated and messy. Definitely. His smile was soft and real. But I'm willing to try if you are. No more lies, no more manipulation, just honesty, even when it's hard. Partners? Shawnee looked at him. This dangerous, complicated, impossible man who'd hunted her across continents and somehow made her feel seen. Who'd been willing to give up leverage just to prove she mattered. Partners, she agreed. He kissed her then. Not desperate, not claiming. This kiss was soft and questioning and full of possibility. A beginning instead of an ending. His hands slid into her hair, hers gripped his shirt, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this. His warmth, his taste, the way he held her like she was precious. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Minjai rested his forehead against hers. Sarangi, he whispered. I love you. Shawnee's breath caught. She wasn't ready to say it back. Not yet, not when everything was still so new and fragile. But she could give him something. Ask me again in a month, she whispered back. When we've had time to build something real. Minjai's smile was brilliant. I can wait. They walked toward the elevator, hands linked, the envelope clutched in Shawnee's other hand. Behind them, Seoul glittered. A city of millions. A place where a woman from Atlanta and a crime lord from Gangnam had found each other against all odds. Where two broken people had chosen to be broken together instead of destroying each other. Where an ending became a beginning. And as the elevator doors closed, Shawnee leaned into Minji's warmth and thought, maybe trust wasn't something you had. Maybe it was something you built, piece by piece, choice by choice, moment by moment. Maybe love was the same way. She looked up at Minjai, at the way he watched her like she was his entire world, and felt something settle in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to hope. One day at a time? She asked. One day at a time, he agreed. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Shawnee believed in happy endings, not because everything was perfect, but because they'd both chosen to try, together. So, did Shawnee and Minjai's story wreck you as much as it wrecked me? Drop a comment and let me know. Did you forgive Minjai, or were you team Shawnee should have walked away? And if you're already craving more possessive, morally gray heroes who fall hard for strong women who don't need saving, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, we're just getting started. See you in the next story.